The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and regret. Ethan Caldwell lay in the stiff bed, his shoulder throbbing where the bullet had torn through muscle and bone. The TV flickered silently in the corner, replaying the grainy security footage that had turned his life upside down. A man in a faded denim jacket lunging in front of a child, a flash of gunfire, and then chaos. That man was him. 48 hours ago, he'd been a security guard at a mall, scraping by on minimum wage. Now, he was unemployed, hailed as a hero by strangers, and drowning in medical bills he couldn't hope to pay. Ethan's phone buzzed on the bedside table. Another text from his boss, or former boss, technically. Asterisk, we're sorry, Ethan. Policy is policy. You violated protocol engaging the shooter. Best of luck. Asterisk, he didn't need to reread it. The words were seared into his brain. He'd saved a kid's life, taken a bullet for it, and all he got was a pink slip and a pat on the back from a news anchor who mispronounced his name. The door swung open, startling him. A woman stood in the threshold, flanked by two men in sleek black suits, their earpieces glinting under the fluorescent lights. She was striking tall, with sharp cheekbones and dark hair pulled into a tight bun. Her tailored coat screamed wealth, but her eyes held something else. Urgency, maybe fear. The guard stayed by the door as she stepped inside, her heels clicking against the linoleum. Mr. Caldwell, she said, her voice low but commanding. My name is Elena Voss. We need to talk. Ethan propped himself up, wincing as pain shot through his shoulder. If you're a reporter, I'm not interested. Already told my story to 3 of you today. I'm not a reporter. She glanced at the guards, who nodded and stepped outside, closing the door. The room felt smaller now, the air thick with something unspoken. Elena pulled a chair to his bedside and sat, her posture rigid. I'm here because of what you did at the mall. You saved my daughter. Ethan's breath caught. The child, a girl, maybe 6, with pigtails and a bright yellow backpack, had been frozen in the shooter's path. He hadn't thought, hadn't hesitated. Just acted. Your daughter, he said, voice hoarse. Is she okay? Elena's expression softened, just for a moment. Claire is fine. Thanks to you. A few scratches, nightmares, but alive. She leaned forward, her gaze piercing. I don't make a habit of owing people, Mr. Caldwell. But I owe you everything. He shifted uncomfortably, the weight of her stare too much. I just did what anyone would have done. No, she said sharply. They wouldn't. Most people run from danger. You ran toward it. She reached into her coat and pulled out an envelope, placing it on the bed. This is a start. $1 million. A thank you. Ethan stared at the envelope, his heart pounding. $1 million. It was a lifeline, enough to clear his debts, fix his car, maybe even start over. But something about it felt wrong, like a transaction for something that wasn't for sale. I didn't do it for money, he said, pushing the envelope back toward her. I'm glad your daughter's okay, but I can't take this. Elena's brow furrowed, as if she wasn't used to being refused. You lost your job. You're injured. You have no family, no savings. Her voice wasn't cruel, just matter of fact, like she'd done her homework. You're telling me you'll turn down help when you need it most? He clenched his jaw. She wasn't wrong. His parents were gone, his sister estranged after a fight years ago. His apartment was one missed rent payment from eviction. Still, the idea of taking her money made his skin crawl. I don't want to profit off saving someone, he said. That's not who I am. She studied him, her eyes narrowing. You're stubborn. Good. You'll need that. She stood, slipping the envelope back into her coat. This isn't over, Mr. Caldwell. I'll be in touch. Before he could respond, she was gone, the door clicking shut behind her. The room felt emptier, but her words lingered like a promise or a warning. The next week was a blur. Ethan was discharged with a sling and a bottle of painkillers. The media frenzy had died down, replaced by new headlines, but his story still floated around online. Strangers sent him messages, some calling him a hero, others accusing him of staging it for attention. He ignored them all, focusing on the immediate, finding a new job. Easier said than done with a bum shoulder and a resume that screamed high school dropout. He was microwaving a frozen burrito in his cramped apartment when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost let it go to voicemail, but curiosity won. Hello. Mr. Caldwell, it's Elena Voss. Her voice was unmistakable, crisp, and controlled. I have a proposition. Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m., at the address I'm texting you. Don't be late. She hung up before he could ask questions. A moment later, a text arrived, an address downtown, a sleek office building he'd passed 100 times but never entered. His gut told him to ignore it, to stay clear of whatever game she was playing. But the stack of unpaid bills on his counter had other ideas. The next morning, he arrived early, his best shirt ironed but still a size too big. The lobby was all glass and marble, the kind of place that made him feel like he'd wandered into someone else's life. A receptionist ushered him to an elevator that shot up to the 40th floor. When the doors opened, Elena was waiting, dressed in a sharp blazer and skirt, her guards nowhere in sight. "Prompt," she said, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "I like that." She led him into an office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "Sit." He did, feeling like a kid in the principal's office. "What's this about, Ms. Voss?" "Call me Elena." She sat across from him, folding her hands. "I run a foundation, Voss Initiatives. We fund projects that make a difference. Schools, hospitals, clean water. But we also invest in people. People like you." He frowned. "I'm not a project." "No, you're not," she agreed. "You're a man who risked his life for a stranger. That's rare. I want you to work for me." Ethan blinked, caught off guard. "Work for you? Doing what?" "I'm a security guard, not exactly foundation material." "You're more than your job title," she said. "I've seen your record. You grew up in foster care, pulled yourself out of nothing. You've got instincts, courage. I need someone I can trust to oversee our field operations, someone who will put people first, no matter the cost." He leaned back, skeptical. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." She slid a folder across the desk. "Your contract, if you accept. 6 figures, full benefits, training included. You'd travel, meet people who need help, make sure our funds get where they're supposed to. You'd be saving lives, Ethan, just in a different way." He stared at the folder, his mind racing. It was everything he'd never dared dream of: stability, purpose, a chance to matter. But it was too perfect, too sudden. "Why me?" he asked. "You could hire anyone." Her expression flickered, a shadow crossing her face. "Because you remind me of someone I lost. Someone who believed in doing the right thing, no matter what." She stood, smoothing her blazer. "Take the folder. Read it. Give me your answer by tomorrow." Ethan spent the night poring over the contract, the words blurring as his pain meds wore off. It was generous, too generous. He searched Elena Voss online, expecting a trail of scandals or corporate fluff. Instead, he found articles about her foundation's work: orphanages in Haiti, clinics in rural Africa, scholarships for kids like he'd been. But there were gaps, 2 whispers of secrecy, unnamed investors, projects that vanished from public view. Nothing concrete, just enough to make him uneasy. He thought of the girl, Clara, her terrified eyes as he'd shielded her. He thought of his own childhood, bouncing between foster homes, wishing someone had seen him as more than a problem. Elena's offer was a chance to be that someone for others. But at what cost? By morning, he'd made his decision. He met Elena at a coffee shop, the contract signed and tucked under his arm. "I'm in," he said, sliding it toward her. "But I have conditions. I want transparency. No secrets, no shady deals. If I'm doing this, I need to know it's real." She raised an eyebrow, amused. "You're negotiating already." "I like it." She took the contract, her fingers brushing the paper. "You'll have access to what you need. But understand this, my work isn't always clean. Sometimes, helping people means making hard choices." He nodded, hoping he wouldn't regret it. The next year transformed Ethan's life. He trained in logistics, crisis management, even public speaking skills he'd never imagined needing. He traveled to places he'd only seen on maps: a village in Uganda where a new school opened, a flood-ravaged town in India where he handed out supplies. Everywhere, he saw people like him, ordinary, struggling, but fighting to keep going. He poured himself into the work, driven by the faces he met, the hands he shook. Elena was a constant presence, guiding him through the chaos. She was brilliant, relentless, but guarded, her past a locked door she never opened. He caught glimpses of her humanity, laughing with Clara over ice cream, or quietly funding a stranger's surgery, but she never let him close. Still, he trusted her, or wanted to. Then came Jakarta. They were overseeing a water purification project, a joint effort with local NGOs. Ethan noticed discrepancies in the budget, funds rerouted to an offshore account, names he didn't recognize. He confronted Elena in their makeshift office, the humid air thick with tension. "Explain this," he said, tossing the ledger on her desk. "Money's disappearing, and it's not reaching the people who need it." Her face was unreadable. "You're looking at things you don't understand." "Then help me understand," he snapped. "You promised transparency." She stood, pacing to the window. "There are forces at play you can't imagine, Ethan. People who'd rather see these projects fail. Sometimes, we pay to keep them at bay. You mean bribes? His stomach twisted. That's not what I signed up for. It's how the world works. She shot back, her voice rising. You think kindness alone builds schools? Saves lives? You're naive. The word stung, but he held her gaze. Maybe, but I'd rather be naive than complicit. For a moment, she looked like she might argue. Then her shoulders sagged, and she sank into a chair. You're right, she said quietly. I've lost sight of why I started this. She met his eyes, and for the first time, he saw vulnerability. The man you remind me of, he was my brother. He died trying to do what's right, exposing corruption in our family's company. I swore I'd honor him, but I've been compromising too long. Ethan softened, his anger fading. Then let's fix it. Together. They spent months unraveling the mess. Elena opened her books, revealing a web of payoffs and threats from powerful players, politicians, corporations, even criminal networks. Ethan worked tirelessly, redirecting funds, protecting projects, and shielding the people they served. It wasn't easy. Threats came in whispers and shadows, but he faced them with the same resolve he'd felt at the mall. The climax came in a small community center in Chicago, where Elena's foundation was launching a youth program. Ethan was there, shaking hands, when Clara ran up, now 7, her pigtails bouncing. You're my hero, she said, hugging him tightly. He froze, his throat tight, as Elena watched from across the room, her eyes shining. Later, she pulled him aside. You've changed me, she said. I was so focused on winning, I forgot what mattered. You reminded me. He smiled, weary but content. Just doing my job. No, she said. You're doing what most people won't. You're proof humanity's worth fighting for. Years later, Ethan stood at a podium, speaking to a crowd about the Foundation's work. His shoulders still ached on rainy days, a reminder of the bullet that changed everything. He wasn't rich, wasn't famous, but he was whole. The crowd applauded, and he caught Elena's eye in the front row, Clara beside her, both beaming. He'd taken a bullet for a stranger and found a purpose. In a world that often felt broken, he learned that kindness, selflessness, could still mend it, one act at a time.